Hi friends, we now present part 2 of the chapter 1, which is the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the state of confusion. We saw in the previous video how confused Arjuna was and how he had decided to quit even before the war started. Arjuna tells Krishna, please take my chariot to the middle of both the armies so that I may look at the warriors arrayed for battle whom I must fight in this great combat. After seeing the entire army on both the sides, his mind goes into a depression and throwing down his weapons explains to Krishna that he cannot fight. This reluctance comes not from unwillingness to compromise, but the unwillingness to take the decision. Arjuna thinks, I wanted to see as with whom do I have to fight. So now, this is an interesting question, the answer of which Arjuna obviously knew. It was not that Arjuna was expecting someone new among the Kauravas or that some new alliances would have been formed. The strategies for the war had been planned and it was known as to who all he had to fight. For Arjuna and the other Pandavas, it was very mortifying that they would have to fight with their cousin brothers and they never wanted such a war. That being the case, what was that Arjuna wanted to see? That was an indication where the situation was grinding him out of shape, and as an average man, we get crushed by the world around us because of our weakness. Arjuna becomes weaker as his inner mental personality breaks up, and as Swami Chinmayananda says, this is the Arjuna Sthiti or the Arjuna disease, which is a universal disease. According to Swamiji, every one of us at one time or the other come under this influence, and these are the moments when we get crushed by the world of situations around. This is the turning point of incidents in Bhagavad Gita. Throughout the entire Vanavas, Arjuna was grinding his weapons to prepare himself for the war, had been very confident and even with a shade of arrogance. He was very thrilled to see the great warriors like Bhishma, Dronacharya, Karna, Kripa and Ashwadhama besides the 100 Kauravas, and even expects to have a one-to-one combat with the great Bhishma Pitamaha. He cannot but wait for the war to start, and when he requested Krishna to drive the chariot to the middle of the battlefield, Sri Krishna, the Guru, the mentor, does not say anything but smiles. Grief, it is said, can be a powerful trigger for transformation. It was so in Arjuna's case when he lost his nerve as he stood in the middle of the battlefield. Disillusioned and in a state of emotional breakdown, he launches into a series of arguments against the war to a silent Lord Krishna. This is like the young days of one's career, when he wants to conquer the entire world without concern for his colleagues and not making a proper analysis of self, the others, and the environment. To be precise, he does not do the required SWOT analysis. Over a period, the sheen loses and the enthusiasm changes to disinterest, confusion, apathy, and finally into frustration. This leads to reluctance to work, affects efficiency, and lacks productivity. The bubbling energy must be channelized from being overspilled, for which proper guidance and training are required. That is the reason why we always need a guide, a trainer, or a guru. And here, in the case of Arjuna, the trainer is none other than his mentor, Sri Krishna. Arjuna was a skilled fighter, and his devotion towards the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, was such that the Lord himself had agreed to be Arjuna's charioteer, the pilot. he takes a closer look at the Kaurava army to see all those who had taken the side of injustice, to punish them equally as they had chosen to be on the wrong side, and none of them would be spared. Yet, for Arjuna, the thought of killing his own relatives troubled him to such an extent that his body started to tremble. Arjuna had become so disillusioned that superstition started gripping him, and he could only see bad omens indicating severe devastation. Thus, he felt it would be a sin to engage in such a battle. We often keep blaming the circumstances or others, but turn a blind eye towards our own weaknesses. Arjuna's justification for not killing his greedy cousins and relatives was driven by his own attachment and compassion towards them. Blinded by compassion, he had forgotten his dharma, his duty as a soldier, that he was beyond his material body. His delusion had come to a point where he was willing to drop his weapons and allow his enemy to kill him unarmed. Arjuna's reluctance to fight the war had now reached its climax. His condition was the creation of his own material attachments and caused his dereliction of duty. This was a completely unexpected behavior from someone who was considered the epitome of devotion and self-surrender to God. In the chapter 2, Arjuna then formally asks Sri Krishna to be his spiritual teacher and pleads him for guidance on the proper path of action in the situation he finds himself in. Hi friends, while we wind up chapter 1 here, we shall be looking at chapter 2 in the future videos. Till then, take care and bye.